Midfield is the biggest problem in West Ham's squad that needs addressing this summer, and we've already done a transfer factory that you should definitely check out after this one about some of the other options that we could sign. But Jack, we're doing another. What's the difference with this one? What's the different process we went through?
There's just more players, really. No, we looked mainly for players who could be a bit more impactful moving forward as number eight in the last video, and in this one we're looking for players that are a little bit more secure, cover ground well, are more dominant in their tackles, and therefore fit a little bit more neatly, potentially as a deeper option in the midfield. So we went for a lot of different solutions again, and went through lots of players to get here, starting with maybe some players that have featured a little bit further forward recently that we think, or have played often going further forward, that we think could have the attributes to play a bit deeper and do a really good job a bit deeper. Then some proper defensive midfielders that could play as a single pivot by themselves, very much more of a number six, and then a couple of players right at the end who kind of blend everything we're looking for, would be able to play as an eight, would be able to play as a six, depending on who's available, could do lots of different jobs for the squad.
Yeah, it shows the level of work that has to go into the squad this summer, that not only can we do a second one, but there's so many different other aspects we would have to consider, because midfield is such a big issue that needs addressing. So Darcy, we'll start with you. Who's your number three pick for maybe a more defensive sided of the midfield that we are looking at this summer?
It's a guy who plays for Shakhtar Donetsk. He's Brazilian and he's called Marlon Gomes. He's 21 years old. He's under contract until 2028. He's currently valued at 10 million. And for some reason that I'm not 100% sure of, that's slightly depreciated over the last two seasons since they've bought him. But if anything, that actually indicates it's maybe a good time to go and get someone like him as the value comes down. Because certainly I don't think that translates in terms of what he's able to produce on the pitch. As a player, extremely technical, very Brazilian, intense in all of his actions, whether that's on the ball or off the ball. He really wants to get in people's faces as soon as the team turn over the ball, and his ability to eat up ground very quickly. He covers ground very quickly, allows him to do that easily and quite successfully a lot of the time. But he's also intense from an in-possession perspective. He goes and seeks out a high volume of responsibility in terms of going and receiving the ball off the back line. He's capable of being involved in every single phase of play, and that's great because he has a skill set that applies across every phase really well. Really fluid receiver of the ball, takes it on the back foot, on the turn, and that's both off the back line but also in between the lines when he's in a more advanced attacking areas. His first touch is really reliable, and to be honest, he's one of those players where the first touch isn't something you even really worry about. A lot of the time it's almost like second nature to him. As a passer, he distributes longer balls across the pitch really well. He can break lines by punching passes across the floor. But most importantly, with his sort of passing repertoire, I like the decision making. I like how he picks his passes and kind of adjusts his decision making to the phase and the role that he's in. So if he's receiving off the back line, he's happy to drop out into maybe like a right back sort of spot, play safer passes. But then also if he's a little bit more advanced in between the lines, he's taking that ball on the turn and he's conducting as more of a playmaker too. If there's anything that you could kind of I guess mark against him for, his intensity without the ball means that he can come across as a little bit undisciplined. And I don't mean in terms of picking up yellow cards. I more mean structural discipline. So for example, there's a goal that he scored against Dortmund that comes from him starting as the deepest midfielder and ending up going past everyone and pressing the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper smacks it against him and it goes in the goal. Obviously it worked, but I think if you're looking for an out and out six, you don't structurally want one of your deeper midfielders pressing through in a way like that, or all the way through to the goalkeeper in that way. But obviously that's something that that's something that's encouraged of him maybe at Shakhtar Donetsk that doesn't necessarily need to be encouraged of him at West Ham if he were to come in. So really intense player, kind of brings the energy that I think we need in midfield, and that's the biggest thing. And he combines that with really good technical ability too.
Yeah, I've only seen very few glimpses of him, but I've been really impressed by that side of his game. What about you, Jack? Who's your number three choice?
Yeah, just briefly on Gomes as well, just to sort of double down on him being very good. He's attracted a lot of interest. I think Leverkusen bid for him already in this window and have tried to push for a deal. So I think if you're looking at what's happening in the Bayer Leverkusen midfield, and they look like they might lose Granit Xhaka. Obviously, they want to compete for titles in Germany. If they're interested in a player like Marlon Gomes, that's obviously good evidence that he's quite good, especially given Leverkusen's recent track record of signing perhaps lesser known players and converting them into really important players for their team. I'm going for NGAL'AYEL Macau though, and I should start here by saying we have a bit of uncertainty over exactly how West Ham will line up next season, whether it will be a 3-5-2 or a 3-box-3. With both Gomes and Macau, Darcy was just talking about you don't really want your six pressing all the way through. If it was a 3-box-3, I think both of these guys would be absolutely brilliant in that system where there's two deeper midfielders, and maybe they exchange the license to go and run forward out of possession as part of the press, and also in possession as players that can advance via carry and take up more advanced positions in the midfield. Macau definitely does that. He's 20 years old. He's currently a Lille player, contracted to 2028. He moved from Mechelen in Belgium to Lille last summer for just 5 million euros, which really is nothing for the quality of player that they've got this season. Rotated in and out a lot last season. They had a lot of midfielders. So Nabil Bentaleb, formerly of Spurs, Angel Gomez, Andre Gomes, formerly of Everton, Bouadi, really exciting young player, and Benjamin Andre, all playing in this role or in these two roles in deep midfield. So lots of minutes given to each of these players. It does mean that Macau didn't necessarily get a really clear full season run, and actually I think that's a good thing for us if we were interested, because it's a really tempting sale, right? You're not necessarily going to nail a spot. You're not going to be the number one pick every single week at Lille, but you might be if you come and join us, or we would. That's how we would pitch it to someone like him. Capable at number 6, capable as number 8, capable as a number 10. He's played all three roles last season, and I think that does make him the perfect guy for this box midfield setup, or even like a box that could look a little bit like a diamond, where you have someone that can play any of those roles, and anyone else who gets caught forward in an attack, he can go and fill their slot. Doesn't really matter. He's happy to play in any of those positions. Standout qualities with him, I think there are going to be some similar ones across the board with these players. Dual dominance, he's very strong in his duels, 65th percentile and 76th percentile on aerials and tackles in Liga last season. Just overall volume of tackles and interceptions appears really highly for both of those, which is a good indication that he's covering lots of ground. And then the really big thing that I like with him is actually his off-ball movement. He does a really good job of picking out where to be on the pitch to help other players with the next pass. And I really like that he can maybe start as the deepest player, play a pass forward, and we've had this with lots of other players we've talked about in this series, and there will be more that we talk about in these terms as we go through. But that ability to move after you've played a pass to make it easier for the player that you've passed to, I think sometimes that appreciation is sometimes lacking at West Ham. So to recruit someone who makes that not just something that they do, but a real strength of what they do, I think would be useful. Good carrier too. Biggest issue for me is I think you probably would want to spend more time in advanced areas, and if we're wanting to try and tempt someone to play a little bit of a deeper role, that might be a mark against him wanting to sign specifically for us. Everton rumoured to be interested. Seems like it would be about £17 million. Very good player.
Someone whose name I think will continuously come up. He already has done since he joined there, and I think not just for West Ham but across the Premier League, he'll probably, if he doesn't move now, will continue to be linked to moves, because there is definitely something there. Jack, we'll go to you on this one first. What's your number 2 pick?
Well, at number 2, I did originally have Leslie Ugojukwu, who, as you may have noticed, has moved. And as you may have noticed, I am not the same as I was a moment ago, because this is Jack from the future, just before the video was about to go out, replacing my number 2 pick with Valentin Atangana-Adoa, 19 years old, playing at Ram, 2027 contract. Ram obviously had a very confusing summer, I would say, relegated from Liga. Reinstated in Liga because Lyon got relegated due to financial reasons, and then Lyon got reinstated, so Rams were reinstated in Ligue 2. So they've been relegated, and as such, Atangana-Adoa is probably available for quite cheap. He formed one part of an excellent double pivot in midfield with Amadou Kone at Ram last season. Ram's issues were multiple, but not necessarily about the strength that they had defensively in front of their back line. Kone and Natangana were really, really good. I watched Ram a lot last season, was really impressed by how they defended, how they screened the back line. They just didn't really have enough, I think, up front, and then also some of the defending at the back from the centre backs wasn't great. They improved a little bit when Mori Gaban went back into centre back. Another midfielder who played really well, actually, another defensive midfielder who played really well with Ram last season. Amadou Kone has gone. I think he would have been the best player out of the two, or the most exciting player, probably the biggest ceiling, some more highlight standout metrics and stuff. He's gone to Neom in Saudi Arabia, but Valentin Atangana is still there. Capped twice for the French under-21s. And the reason he goes into the list really is because he's a direct map for what Leslie Ugochukwu does. If you kind of imagine Ugochukwu before he came to the Premier League, before he got his Premier League experience, when he played half a season and really impressed with Rennes in Liga, Atangana's kind of the same thing. He's 19, just doing it, just starting to impress people in Liga. So it's kind of like Ugochukwu after Ugochukwu before where Ugochukwu is now. That's a very complicated way of saying what I'm trying to say. What I really like about him as well is he can play centre-back. He's acquitted himself really well at centre-back when he's played in there, and that's partly because he's so good in the air. So that's another additional thing you get as compared to some of the other targets on this list. He's one of the strongest aerial midfielders in France, and when you think about the likelihood that Thomas Soucek doesn't necessarily start and complete every single game in the Premier League this season, replacing his aerial qualities is something that would be really nice to have. Atangana wins 58% of his aerials. He wins more aerials than 91% of midfielders in France. So really, really, really strong in the air. Very dominant in the duels, on the deck as well. Like most other players on this list, I think he's one of the best duelers in France, full stop, across both types, but particularly on the ground where he wins almost 74%. I think that's only beaten by like one midfielder maybe in France because he's in the 98th percentile. He's also in the 98th percentile for challenges lost, so doesn't ever lose tackles when he goes to make tackles. And that generally is paired with players who don't make lots of tackles. We see that, for example, at fullback with Wan-Bissaka. Lots of success in the tackles, but not so many tackles. Atangana makes lots of tackles, lots of interceptions, really active defender, and then he has the ability to progress forward via carry as well. Safe passer, good passer, not so progressive. That's probably his biggest limitation. He's not someone that's breaking lines all the time for you, but a really incredible young player I really like a lot, and probably one of the cheaper ones on the entire list.
Darcy, what about your number 2 pick?
Yeah, mine is Ibrahima Sori Bangura of Genk, so playing in the Belgian Pro League. He's 21 years old. He's got a contract until 2028. He's only just broken into the side this season, but has looked completely comfortable. And I think it's probably fair to say dominant at Belgian Pro League level. And really the dominance and the highlight of his profile comes in the levels that he's been able to put up as out of possession. So in his duels, in his defensive actions, he's sort of in and around like the top 16% for basically everything. And the reason that's quite notable is because he plays for a team that has the highest average possession domestically. So they have almost 60% of the ball a game. Yet he's able to put up this massive volume for defensive interventions, ball recoveries, interceptions. I think that says a lot about his ability, obviously, to cover ground, but also his ability to anticipate danger as well. It really helps that he's basically the perfect physical build for this kind of role. He's 1.9 meters, really tall. He's got really long legs to help make recovery tackles, make blocks around the box as well. Helps him eat up ground. And I'd say when he's sort of like chasing someone down or going into a duel, it almost seems like unfair on the person that he's running towards and quite scary for them because he's so physically imposing. With the ball, he's very much sort of this risk-averse type profile, extremely safe player. Rarely misses a pass, despite making lots of them. He's also very press-resistant when it comes to his take-on ability as well. The downside with his profile is the data anyway suggests that he's not particularly progressive. I will say if you watch earlier footage of him, it's very clear that he's able to penetrate via carry and also has a very good passing range. So it's maybe that this kind of stuff in his profile as the deepest player is less encouraged at senior level, but it's definitely a drawback compared to some of the other guys on the list. So a real dual dominator profile, massive ground coverage, transition preventing machine, extremely reliable on the ball. You might be missing out on some progression, But personally, I don't really mind that. I actually quite like a risk-averse passing profile in a number 6, someone that's going to keep things simple and make sure that the team retain the ball. Just based on what he's been able to do this year, I kind of have no doubt that at some point someone will make a move for him quite soon, and he will end up being a household name as sort of a dual dominator at the base of the midfield.
Newcastle reported to be interested for lots of this window, and I think you started by saying I think it's fair to say he would be considered dominant. I think there are 5 sort of metrics defensively that I think are really important in midfield: tackles, interceptions, ball recoveries, percentage of dribblers tackled, and percentage of aerials won. Bangura is in the 98th percentile for tackles, 98th for interceptions, 93rd for ball recoveries, 97th percentage of dribblers tackled, and 92nd for percentage of aerials.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy what he's been able to do, especially in his maiden season at senior level.
And this is a team that's dominating the ball. This is a team that's up there at the top of the league.
Yeah.
This is not a team that's facing, loads of pressure all the time. That's allowing someone to rack up loads of defensive numbers.
And if there's one thing we need in that midfield at times last season was someone to just stop them. Just stop whatever you're doing. Just stop the other team, because Jesus Christ, at times we needed that. And if you're interested in hearing some more about him or any of the other people on this list, patreon.com/analyticsunited. The link in the description. Have a little gander at that, because we have an extended edition, a companion show to this, Transfer Factory Extended, where Jack and Darcy go over more details on the 6 players discussed today, plus an extra 4 for a full top 10, alongside some other honourable mentions that don't make the list. They talk about the process of how going through, how we find these players, how we go through them all and decide which ones are the best ones to recommend, and it's there available to you for free, because the first 7 days is free. Patreon.com/analyticsunited. Not only that, all the other transfer factories are there, as well as all the other good stuff we do on Patreon, Jack and Darcy and Karen, all that good stuff. But you're here on Transfer Factory, so you might be interested in that. Patreon.com/analyticsunited. Darcy, let's go for your number 1 pick, the biggest boy. The one who we reckon is the best option. I hope he better be big anyway. That's all I'm interested in. Do we know his height? That's important for me specifically.
Let me double check. He's 1m90, so he's the same as
That's a big boy. That's a big boy. Okay,
equally big boy.
He's in the category. All right, fair. Who is it?
It's Songutu Mugasa of Monaco. 21 years old. I think all of my players are 21 actually. 2029 contract. Player with massive potential. Another really impressive young French midfielder out of Ligue 1. Made 21 appearances for Monaco last season. Managed just over 1,000 minutes in a season that was disrupted by injury. I think it was a facial injury. So no big long-term injury concerns, but somehow got a facial fracture. But when he did feature, was really, really impressed with what I've seen. I think the best thing and the most notable thing for me is the comfortability and composure in moments when he's the deepest midfielder. Collects information really well, scans behind him really well, so he can make more informed decisions. He shapes his body really nicely to turn and receive and turn in fluently in one touch. Is able to remain in control of the ball when he's under pressure, and that allows him to roll out or squirm his way out of pressure consistently. And most importantly, is not really rushed by pressure either. Is very, very composed when he's in a congested area. He's also a really good forward passer. He finds ways to progress the team forward. Often looks to hit the front line. That can sometimes have some downsides. He can be a little bit too keen to try and break lines, force a progressive pass into the attackers, just because he's seen the opportunity. Even when it might not be the right time. And his data for pure pass completion reflects that slightly as well. It's not particularly standout. And maybe that's the one area I'd be keen to see some improvements in. But without the ball defensively, he really sort of typifies the phrase ground coverage. He's in the top 5% of Ligue 1 midfielders for defensive action metrics in our sample, top 2% for duels contested, which reads as someone that anticipates positions well, but is also just extremely busy and gets around the pitch, and therefore possesses good mobility, which is exactly what we need, as we know. So if you want someone that has an extremely relaxed temperament on the ball at the base of midfield, can find and hit progressive passes, and then is intense and in people's faces without it, Mugasa is kind of a really high potential option already got a lot of quality, not necessarily first choice at Monaco either, so maybe there's some potential for a deal there. But yeah, a player I'm really a fan of and I think could come into the base of our midfield and do a job straight away.
And he's big, which to me
is big.
Probably the most important. Jack, who's your number one option? And more importantly, are they big?
Yeah, my one's quite big, 1m85, not as big as Magassa, and not capable of the cheeky wide centre-back shift that Magassa definitely could do, having already played as a centre-back for the French national team at the Olympic Games. I have someone that everyone is sick of hearing about. He's been talked about all window. Man United, Arsenal, Spurs, anyone who's ever needed a six and is a big club has been interested. It's 23-year-old Lucien Agume, now at Sevilla, contracted to 2028. Well, Sevilla are the team that have turned a former wonder kid back into a wonder kid. So he initially went to Inter at 17 years old from Sochaux, and then just went into loan hell, and 4 loans later left for Sevilla for less than they bought him for, and turns out Sevilla have got a really good player out of that situation. So yeah, and he went on loans to Spezia, Stade Brest, Troyes, and then Sevilla, and then obviously left permanently. Capable as a number 6 and as a number 8. Played really well in a double pivot with Arsenal's Albert Sambi Lokonga last season, and yeah, really showed off what he can do again as a dual dominator with a lot of defensive involvement. Yeah, popping in the same way as someone like Bangura in Belgium, really, for defensive data, but this is in La Liga, it's a step up. So 98th percentile for success in the tackle, 88th percentile for ball recoveries, 98th percentile for interceptions, 93rd percentile for tackles. These are really, really incredible numbers in a difficult league. He showed his ability to completely dominate the midfield defensively last season, and then where the other players that did this maybe didn't quite have as much progressive ability, Lucien Agume has that too. He's very much a progressive passer. In the 76th percentile for that last season, almost 6 progressive passes per game. When you add his carries on top, which are 1.23, they're middling, but you're getting up to 7.5 progressions per game. That's a lot of progressions in one match, and makes him immediately one of the more progressive players in our team if he were to join us. The drawback that comes with that, understandably, naturally, is that unlike some of the other players on this list who combine a lower level of progression with higher levels of retention, with Agume you get a higher level of progression but actually a much higher level of turnovers, a much lower level of retention. He does give the ball away quite a lot. I think it's almost, it might even be more than 10 times per game that he turns the ball over, and was really noticeable when I watched him on Euro Review last season, which is a show that we had over on Patreon last season and that we will be converting into new takes on European football throughout the season over there. And yeah, we watched Sevilla. I can't exactly remember who it was against. And we did an in-depth coverage of all of Sevilla's players. And I really remember the big focus of our section on Agume, Charlie, being how many times he sort of lazily gave the ball away. Passes where if he just spent a little bit more time considering whether it was a good option, or a little bit more time focusing on how he delivered the pass rather than doing it in a slightly half-hearted way, he wouldn't be giving the ball away quite so much. Agume's a very, very, very talented player. There's a reason why so many big clubs are interested. They're always interested, frankly, when you get a number 6 who can dominate defensively and progress play. But I think there is a little bit of work to be done on just improving the kind of cleanness of the actions and the repeatability and consistency of the actions. And that doesn't mean that he's not a good option for West Ham. Frankly, if he was more tidy in everything he did, he wouldn't be in this video. We wouldn't even be able to consider him as an option. What I will say is, even with that lack of general accuracy or consistency, I think this would be a bit pie in the sky compared to the other players on this list, with the interest that he has from bigger clubs. I would be very surprised if Agume was to leave Sevilla so soon after joining permanently and playing well for another club that's not in Europe. I'm sure he will sit there and wait for the next move, which would be a really, really, really big club. If there was any possibility at all, though, definitely a player that West Ham should be looking at because, yeah, hugely, hugely talented.
And if there was any opportunity, it would be right now. You can't be waiting around, because it will just be a case of one of those big European clubs coming in and taking that chance and going, right, that's the guy, we're going to go in and see what we can do with him. We would have to be now. If we were ever going to do it, it would have to be now. But like I said, if you are interested in anything about any more of these players, you want to hear more about other midfielders, for example, Transfer Factory Extended, they're all up there, every single one we've ever done, including ones that never made it to YouTube for one reason or another. Even those are up on our Patreon, patreon.com/Analytics United. First 7 days 3, link in the description below. But Jack, Darcy, thank you very much. Good work as per usual. We'll be back soon with more Transfer Factory and more videos, so subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff, and we'll see you then. Cheers, everyone. Bye.